let's talk about carbs. Why is it that some people can eat bread and pasta and feel amazing, while for others, a single slice of toast can make you feel like you need a nap? Well, the answer isn't about willpower. Turns out the real clues are hidden deep inside our own DNA, and we're going to dive in.
I mean, it's a super common frustration, right? You and your friend can be eating the exact same things, but you get totally different results. I'm here to tell you, it is not just in your head. It points to a really deep biological difference between all of us. And we're going to follow the clues to figure out what's really going on.
That's right. And you'd think the whole process starts in your stomach, but nope. The investigation actually begins the very moment you take a bite of food. Before that bread or pasta even has a chance to get to your stomach, a secret weapon gets deployed right there in your mouth. So our first stop on this journey is your saliva. And it's not just there to keep your mouth from being dry, it's actually the very first line of attack in digesting carbs, all because it contains this incredibly powerful secret weapon. Okay, so this secret weapon has a name. It's an enzyme called amylase. And its one and only mission in life is to go after starches. The complex carbs you find in things like potatoes and rice and bread, and immediately start chopping them up into simple sugars your body can actually use for energy. I love this analogy because it's exactly what's happening. Just picture the amylase in your spit as millions of tiny microscopic scissors. Every single time you chew, these little scissors are just snipping away at those long starch chains, giving your body a massive head start on digestion. But wait a minute, where do these molecular scissors even come from? Well, that brings us to our next clue. And for this one, we have to go deeper. We're moving from your spit right into your DNA to look at the genetic blueprints themselves. So the gene that holds the instructions for making all that amylase is called AM1. It's basically the master recipe. But here is where things get really, really interesting. For most genes, you get one copy from your mom and one from your dad. Simple. But the AM1 gene, it plays by a whole different set of rules. And when I say different, I mean wildly different. It turns out people can have a huge range of copies of this AM1 gene. Some people might have just 2, while others could have 17 or even more. This isn't just some tiny variation, it's a massive spectrum of genetic diversity. So what does this all mean in the real world? Well, it's pretty straightforward. Your copy number directly dictates how many of those amylase scissors you have. If you have a low number of copies, say 1 to 4, your body just doesn't produce a lot of amylase. The whole digestion process for starch gets off to a really slow start. But if you're in that high copy group, your saliva is absolutely flooded with amylase, giving you this powerful, rapid-fire start to breaking down any carbs you eat.
Okay, so this brings up the next logical question, right? Does this huge genetic difference actually matter? Does it affect our health, our weight, our blood sugar? Well, researchers have been digging into this exact question.
And what they found is pretty stunning. Study after study has shown a clear link between having fewer AMY1 copies and having a higher risk of obesity. One study found an 8-fold difference in risk between the people with the lowest copies and those with the highest. I mean, that's not 8%, that is 8 times the risk. It really suggests that your carb gene could be a major player in managing your weight. And what about that sluggish, tired feeling after eating carbs? Well, this explains it perfectly. For people with low amylase, eating starch can feel like getting on a blood sugar roller coaster. Because their digestion starts so slowly, they get this big delayed spike in blood sugar. That forces a huge insulin response, which then causes their blood sugar to crash way down. Meanwhile, those high amylase folks, they have a much smoother ride, just a gentle, stable curve. So it all seems pretty simple then, right? High AMI1 is good for carbs, low AMI1 is bad. Case closed. But as you've probably guessed, biology is never quite that simple. The investigation took a really fascinating turn, and it revealed another major player in this whole story. It turns out your DNA isn't working alone. Those starches that don't get broken down by your amylase up in your mouth, they don't just vanish. They travel all the way down to your gut, where a completely different team is waiting to take over. So, let me introduce you to Prevotella. This is a specific kind of gut bacteria that just loves to eat the complex carbs and fibers that make it past that first round of digestion. You can think of it as your gut's personal carb processing specialist.
And this, right here, is the big aha moment. Researchers put people on a whole grain diet and found something incredible. For people with high AMI1, the ones with plenty of amylase, the amount of Prevotella in their gut didn't make any difference for fat loss. But for people with low AMI1, It was a totally different story. For them, having a gut full of Prevotella was the key. It was directly linked to losing more fat. Why? Because the Prevotella were basically picking up the slack, saying, hey, don't worry, I got this, and efficiently breaking down all the carbs that the low levels of amylase couldn't handle. Now, this is fantastic news. It means that even if you have a low number of those AMY copies, you are not doomed to struggle with carbs forever. You can actually work with your biology. So let's look at some really cool, science-backed ways you can help your body handle starches better, no matter what your genes say. Okay, here is a simple but unbelievably effective hack. You can literally try this tonight at dinner. Studies show the order you eat your food makes a huge difference. If you eat your protein and your veggies first, you create this kind of buffer that slows down how quickly the starches you eat last get absorbed. The result? A much smaller, much more manageable blood sugar spike. And there are other great tricks too. First, seriously, chew your food. The more you chew starchy food, the more time your amylase has to do its job. Second, a little acid can help. Starting your meal with a salad that has a vinaigrette dressing can actually give your amylase activity a temporary boost. And finally, timing is everything. Your body is primed to use carbs for fuel right after an intense workout, so that's the perfect time to eat them. And all of this really just brings us to the main takeaway. The whole idea of a one-size-fits-all diet is basically dead. We are all so unique. And as this quote says so perfectly, our genes hold the blueprint for our own personal nutritional needs. So, the ultimate question really becomes a personal one. As we start to understand this incredible dance between our genes, like AMY1, and our gut microbiome, we're really walking into a new era of truly personalized nutrition. It suggests that the perfect diet for you might not be something you find in a book or on the internet, but something you unlock from deep inside yourself.